in the hands of somebody who's environmentally conscious. And there seems to be an increasing trend since the pandemic began. Actually, 16% of consumers are actually spending more time on environmental issues. 16%. People care more, apparently. At least that's what the survey says. So for the sector, is this a risk? Is this an opportunity? There is a category of people, amongst us who are called the eco-actives. And I wanted to talk about them for just 1 minute. You will see that there is an inner circle in this graphic, which was the 2019 circle. And then there is a 2020 circle. Next year, hopefully, in one of our webinars, we'll talk about the 2021 circle. But I can tell you this, if you look at the top right-hand corner of this circle, in 2019, this category of people, they're called eco-actives, was smaller. And today, like I said in the last slide, they're 20%, $382 billion of buying decisions relevant to the FMCG sector being taken by this group of people who care. Yes, there is a much bigger number of eco-dismissers, people who don't care. Yeah. But please look at the shift between 2019 and 2020. The eco-dismissers, who are today bigger than the eco-conscious or the eco-actives, are actually shrinking. And a bigger share of the wallet is moving from the eco-dismissers to a category called eco-considerers. They are people like many people who are on the fence. They're like, okay, I will care for the environment, but till I don't have to pay more. Or I care for the environment, but my wallet will not speak that, etc. To the eco-activists, people who will really take purchase decisions on the basis of environmental considerations, ESG considerations. And if I thought, let me also put another lens on the future, which is the consumers of tomorrow. These eco-actives, who are they? Where are they coming from? And this is a very interesting statistic which shows who actually around you influence your buying behavior. And special consideration to your consideration for environmental concerns and associated buying behaviors. You will find that the biggest contributors here are no longer your friends or your work colleagues or even the media. They are our children. Now, our children care more for the environment and they actually affect our buying behavior. Everyone knows that. Every parent knows that. Children affect buying behavior. They often decide what gets bought, what gets consumed, and especially for the FMCG sector, a very, very important consideration. Is this a risk? Is this an opportunity? I'm sure we will have a riveting conversation about some of these issues. The last message that I had, and I want to repeat this every opportunity that I get, this is the world map. That little circle that you see there, there are more people living inside that circle than in the rest of the world around. India specifically is where the ESG agenda will either succeed or fail. Welcome to this absolutely fantastic webinar, and over to our moderator of the day, Gauravji. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Masood. Thank you so much for the wonderful information. Now, I would request Mr. Gaurav Shuri, founder member Swaraj and director PSI Energy, to moderate the session. Over to you, Gauravji.
Thank you so much, Masood sir, for really setting the tone for the conversation today, and if I could say, grabbing the bull by the horns and spilling it out there and making it challenging, but at the same time so exciting for the two people who are going to join us today, directly representing the FMCG sector. And before we begin today's session, I'd just like to quickly share, to create the context, again, like we did last time. I'm going to do this very, very quickly so that you get an idea of what's the background, what are we creating, and where are we headed. And then we're going to flag the session for today. So let me just quickly check with you all and just check in if you can see my slides. Just give me a moment. You might just see a picture-in-picture for a bit because today I'm not using my dual screen. Can you see my screen? Is the PPT visible?
Yes, yes.
Great, awesome. So just for all of us who might be joining us today for the first time and missed the first session, this is just a background to hook you in. We are looking at environmental, social, and corporate governance as a series of talks, and we're going to request eminent experts from various sectors of the Indian industry to join us. Last week was the last session was very exciting, and again this week again we're looking at taking it forward in a new way and with absolute power and intensity. And we've had some very interesting build-up conversations to what we're going to deal with today. So I did want to flag this very quickly. What is the difference? The context is decisive over here. And a lot of what Masood sir flagged had one question in my mind. Are those statistics relevant to India? Are they taken from the West? In all likelihood, I feel that those statistics in the Indian condition might just be marginally higher, in the sense that the eco-conscious people or the people who are really getting influenced by their children, or even that fourth category that you saw in the histogram, that how much do parents influence our decisions in Indian families. Parents influence our decisions to a great degree, and the more eco-conscious I get, the more open I become to receiving wisdom from my parents, and therefore I quickly fall into the category of eco-active or the people who are considering eco as an option. So we need to remember, where are we on the scale of context? We are a high context culture. We are not in the scale of low context cultures. High context cultures are very deeply rooted in tradition, in historic tradition, in ecology, in environment, in society, so on and so forth. And this is something that we need to keep in mind as we proceed. Again, adding to what Masood sir had said, please take a look carefully. This is the satellite image of Bangalore. I've purposely taken very, very high density parts of the cities, because if you just use the time slider in Google and go back 20 years, these places were not this populated. And you need to understand that the impact of the FMCG sector goes into each one of these buildings that you're looking at via satellite. That's Bangalore. This is Hyderabad. We play a lot of games with the students and the teachers that we work with in universities, and we ask them, spot the tree. And you can see all these images. It becomes really difficult to spot the tree. And this is that part, that whole circle that Masood sir was referring to, which is going to get impacted the heaviest. And if the SDGs succeed, if ESG succeeds, it needs to succeed here. This is Delhi. Welcome to my city. It's absolutely amazing to fly over Delhi, and especially when you're coming in from any other part of the country, you just leave the greenery behind, right? But at the same time, we are surrounded by so many green patches in Delhi as well. But again, bringing you back to the fact that each one of these buildings is a FMCG consumer, and hopefully 1 out of 5 of the people who you see in this image as well are considering the eco way. Of course, goes without saying the impact of what the industry is creating on one hand, and what we are having to deal with at a very rapid scale. We're talking about 180,000 tons a day of the amount of waste that we are generating. And again, like Masood sir very rightly said, plastic waste as one of our biggest nightmares, the government doing so much. But we're going to hear some really interesting initiatives of what the industry is taking on to deal with this issue. And welcome to my city again. I wanted to tell you that if you come to Delhi and you are by chance stuck in the lockdown, don't worry, we can take you to our own personal mountains. We've got Gazipur landfill, we've got Okla landfill, हमारे खुद के पहाड़ हैं, उनके ऊपर आप बैठिएगा, ये कूड़े के पहाड़ हैं, ये हमने बनाए हैं, बहुत बड़े हैं, right? And they are in our face, right? So all of this is showing us the impact. And this is a lovely image that you're seeing right now. This is actually Noida, which is across the river. And what you see on the left side of your screen is the little bit of remaining green part, which so far used to be very rich farmland, but it's soon going to disappear. Historical context, very quickly, I won't get into this. This is something that I've just taken, that it's a conversation that has been happening since the 1950s. And only now have we come to a level where we begin to collaborate, begin to integrate all those elements that started with classical philanthropy, went into creating the projects, went into becoming CSR, and now we're looking at something that brings everything together in this very, very rich multi-metric kind of phenomena that we today call ESG. And very importantly, what needs to be understood is that this is influencing investor decisions, like never before, rapidly at the international scale. In parallel, we've got so many conversations happening that fuel the fire of people becoming eco-conscious and eco-believers, so to speak, right? Now, obviously, there is also a lot of confusion because there's a multitude of terms. Which is the term that is applicable over here? Is it green? Is it eco? Is it responsible investment? Is it socially responsible investment? But finally, we've come to a point in time where internationally people are beginning to accept this single term ESG as the way forward, which is why we at ASSOCHAM, headed by the initiative of Kushagra and Neeraj, are now taking this forward as a series, which will help us understand and unravel what is the Indian industry doing about this. So that brings us to the end of this session. And now the introductory background. And now I would like to turn the mic over to our two eminent guest speakers. So I'd first like to very quickly welcome Mr. Bipin Odekar and Jaisankar sir. Now, both of them have a very, very rich history, having worked in environment for a very long time. Mr. Bipin heads sustainability and operations excellence in Marico. You should know that Marico of late has been topping the charts as far as ESG performance is concerned. They have their own internal metric. They also are part of the climate disclosure protocol. So they're doing some amazing work. And again, in very, very close competition and equally huge major in India, we're talking about Britannia. And we have Jaisankar sir there, who's again heading initiative. So without much further ado, you can go Google these people and understand the caliber that they bring with them. So let's just begin with turning the stage to them and ask them, what is the FMCG sector doing in ESG? How can you help us, kind of wrap our fingers around what's going on and make it easy to understand for all our people in the audience today? What is the FMCG sector doing? And if you could also address some of the points that Masood sir had flagged in the past, we'd love to hear from you. What is it that you're up to? So over to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning. Just I go first. See, in terms of the relevance, right? Environment is always relevant, right? It is never out of context. So, even I would say when I started my career, right, all the time, we had certain management systems and we were focusing on it. Now the focus has, I would say further strengthened, right, with the board members and the stakeholders demanding more from the corporates, that in terms of assurance, how efficient is the corporation operating, and what are the initiatives taken by the corporation to be in a sustainable manner. Okay, those are the things which has gained momentum. So I would say that from the relevant standpoint, I can share what we do at Britannia. Right, a couple of years back, we did a materiality assessment, right, in terms of looking at all the buckets, be it the environment stewardship, product stewardship. I will take a moment to explain the environment stewardship, under which water stewardship comes in, waste management comes in, right, and plastic waste management, and energy conservation. All those things comes under the environment stewardship. And when it comes to product stewardship, it's more about packaging material. How do we economize it? How efficient it is? How can we recycle and reuse it? Those are the things which has come in the product stewardship standpoint. And we as a company, we did the materiality assessment. And then, when you plot a graph, right, you divide into the 4 quadrants, and we look into, from the stakeholder standpoint, which is a high priority item, and from a corporate standpoint, what is more relevant, how to get married, these two things married, right? And different organizations has different priorities. They have to be really, relevant in the market in terms of efficiency and, optimized manner. So from that standpoint, we took quite a bit of a metric. I would say, just to give an example on, water stewardship. We have taken in all the areas, but water stewardship is something we found it's more relevant for us, and it's an order of the day kind of a thing. So what we have done is, how can we be water neutral in a 5 years time? So then we did a baselining couple of years back, and we found our specific consumption was around 1.24 liters per kg of a product. From there, right, we have come down to 0.97 liters per kg of a product, and we are, further working to bring it down to 0.84 and 0.83 and so on. And what are the initiatives we do in that is, what we can do to conserve, and how can we reuse and recycle the water, And then how do we do the watershed and rainwater harvesting and those kind of initiatives within the organization? And then we also have to reach out to the community outreach programs so that we will be able to do the water neutrality aspect. So that's from the water aspect. Similarly, on the waste, we have a specific consumption target. Energy, we have a specific consumption product target. How can we be more green in terms of sourcing green power, right? And how can we go for more relevant stuff like purchase power? We go for green power, wind power, and trying to have solar relevance in this field. So definitely, yes, this is an area where we are progressing, and organization was doing it even before. But now we have really, giving more focus, and we are trying to put the metrics together, and we are becoming more visible. And then this will also go to the suppliers, down the line. I have worked in other organizations like GSK and GE and Honeywell, and definitely, all the organizations are taking, the initiatives in this line. And in terms of even at the level of farmers, how can we be water efficient in terms of growing the crops, right? And harvesting at a village level. How do we maintain a pond at a village level? And using biomass as a substitute from the instead of a coal. A lot of initiatives is happening. So I will pause a moment here, and then maybe when as we move on, we will have more interactions on this.
Wonderful, Jaishankar sir. Thank you so much. And just before we move on, I did want to flag some issues for our listeners today. There's something that Jaishankar sir had mentioned last time, and I want to flag. Masood sir had also mentioned that you need to understand that FMCG as a sector is a short cycle business, right? And I think I'm quoting you over here. Auto sector is a mid-cycle business. These are the businesses that get impacted very fast by even small fluctuations in the supply chain will have a huge impact. And then, of course, from what I understand, they also tend to recover fast. But all these initiatives that you are taking are initiatives that require a certain degree of long-term planning, long-term thinking. And there was one question that did come up for me as you spoke, that is it the case that in case the market is taking a hit, say in a case in a freak case like what we're dealing with in pandemic conditions, does ESG tend to take a backseat? Or are those systems already very strongly in place to make sure that that does not get disrupted and we still manage to deal with the market fluctuations?
Here, I don't think it would happen because these things got to be integrated as part of our management systems, right? And when we integrate it, right, it won't really fall back. I would say that because, whatever we are talking about today, right, whether it is energy or waste, these are going to improve your operational efficiency. And there is no way we can fall back on it, right? Today, if you are going to increase your spend by 1 rupee, then the management is going to ask you where are you going to save 1 rupee, right? And that's the area where we are really looking at how waste is gold, right? How can we reuse it, recycle it? How can we minimize it? How can we prevent pollution? How can we do the resource conservation, waste minimization? Those are the relevance which is there today in the manufacturing excellence field, right? Those are the things which, and I don't think that, at least even in the last 2 years, I would say that our efficiency has improved, right? That's what we could see in the FMCG space, right? In fact, we thought that because of the hand wash and other things, the water consumption will go up. But, we were able to outperform than the target. Actually, our specific consumption was 1.02, but we were able to achieve 0.97. So that's something which I would say that, it's not going to get hit. Right?
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Got that. Thank you so much, Jaishankar sir. Bipin sir, as heading a juggernaut like Marico, having been awarded by CRISIL on their ESG rating on the ES gauge, 225 companies outdoing them. What are the metrics that you're using? How are you managing to keep this in place? And all this acknowledgement, by the way, for all our listeners, is coming in during the lockdown. So very impressive track record. Do share. What are your experiences in implementing ESG? You're on mute, Bipin sir. You'll have to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Thanks, Gaurav. I think first of all, thanks to the ASSOCHAM team to organize such a wonderful event, because this is the very important topic which people need to understand and take it ahead in their business decisions. I'll just take my discussion forward from two important points, which one said by Masoodji and one by Gauravji. Masoodji talked about, he showed a graph, or you can say the where maximum population stays. The developing countries, as in India, and China is a little bit ahead of us. And Gauravji talked about the population density, which is there in majority of the cities. So we need to understand and start the topic of discussion from that point of view. See, what happens is that there is a developed country where the population density is very low. They have the wealth, and these people are talking about sustainability, especially the Nordic countries like Sweden is there, Switzerland there, Norway, Denmark. They have done a little bit better progress in this area. And then there are countries like India. Now, what happens as if you have scanned the last 50 years of industrial growth, as money comes in, your unnecessary needs come up. And because of the unnecessary needs, you start spending on it and you start creating more garbage. So people say that India is far better country as far as sustainability is considered. Our lifestyle is more naturally oriented. We are close to nature. So start imagining as India is developing and our economy is increasing, what is going to happen? What do you mean by economic growth? That means people are going to have more money in their hands. So they are going to spend money, they are going to consume more products, and they are going to create more trash in the system. And as we grow, probably the strong belief that Indian lifestyle is more nature friendly, or we are very close to nature, is going to get challenged. And we are at the sweet spot where we are having an ability to am I audible?
Yes, the sound broke in between for a bit. I don't know if it was my connection, but yes, you're audible. Please.
So we are in a sweet spot. So there's on one hand there's a capitalistic market, on the other hand there's an nature conservatistic type of a mindset, and sustainability is a golden mean, which or is a golden point, which actually say that we have to take care of both people and ensure the coexistence of both the type of views, and then let the world ahead. You spoke about an FMCG industry. As the population grows, definitely FMCG industry is going to play a very big role in such kind of atmosphere, especially while designing their products. The millennials are extremely cautious about those products, what they are using it. Whenever we go to the campuses for interviews, definitely two questions comes in mind very clearly. Students ask. First is definitely what kind of activities you are doing to ensure that your product is sustainable in nature, and second, if I am getting selected, whether I will get an opportunity to work in such kind of a project. So that is not only an expectation, they also would like to contribute from their side in such kind of an area, so which is very welcome sign, which I feel. So what we do in a typical FMCG industry, we use materials, we use energy, and then we create products which are used by the consumers. Now, materials are, it could be energy, it could be plastics, it could be raw material. There are a variety of things. Second thing, there are processes which are having certain aspects which can be worked upon on technology, and there are certain consumer offerings. So we have to basically look at what kind of consumer offerings you are going to give it. When you are doing an economic development, you are giving certain consumer offerings to people, and by doing this or to do those things, you are creating an impact on the environment and the society. So we have created a framework in which we are going to basically consider all these 3-4 aspects together, and then we have identified around 8 impact areas which are going to play a very critical role in whatever the industry we operate in. Today we are in health and wellness sector. And then even though we slightly increase our portfolio to add a few more products, I think these impact areas will remain constant as far as we progress it. These impact areas are, I'll just briefly talk about those things, and then maybe as we progress, we can discuss those things further. Is about the climate change, which is related to GHG emissions, and there are various parameters in that. And the second is water. Third is a circular economy, especially related to plastics. Fourth area is about responsible sourcing. Because nowadays in India, you have seen that MSMEs and SMEs are a very big sector, and many of them are highly associated with large organizations. So we have a strong control over our own units and our own operations, but it is important to take care of the allied industry who is working with you. So responsible sourcing, either services or materials, is an important area. Fifth area is about sustainable coconut. We are the largest buyers of coconut in India and probably the largest crushing unit for coconut oil in Asia. And that becomes a moral responsibility for Marico to work in this particular space or for these farmers, and also to improve India's overall coconut cultivation capacities. Sixth area is about the product sustainability index. Now here the concept which comes related to what we are doing for our ingredient safeties in terms of raw material, packing material, what we are offering to our consumers, what kind of governance practices we have, and what is an environment footprint we have created for our products, and what is an opportunity to basically convert those things. We have made our own model through which we do an assessment of our products, and then it works as a gate for all the new formulations which are going to come in. The next area is social value creation, about all the CSR area, which we speak about as far as the immediate vicinity of our operations are there, is out of ESG, but that is one of the impact area. And last is a strong governance practices, which becomes a backbone of any system. So around these 8 areas, we have created the specific programs, and we would like to take it ahead. So as we progress in the discussion, we will discuss those things further.
Super, excellent. Thank you so much, Bipinji. And there's, I just wanted to also take into account our listeners and viewers who are taking their precious time out to listen. There are a lot of questions coming in the Q&A box. There's a multitude of questions that seem to be coming. Kamna Singh has asked that question. Kamalakanan Chakarpani has asked that question. Pradeep Kaur has asked that question. What is the FMCG sector doing about plastic alternatives? Is there an end in sight? Is there something that we are looking at as an alternative that perhaps over the next few years might get mainstreamed, right? We are aware that for obvious reasons, we don't have an economical alternative as yet. But what is the FMCG sector doing about this? Is a multitude of questions. If you could address this, please, it would be great for the listeners.
Sure. So let's understand plastics. So I'll not jump into the solution. I'll just try to first create a background on what do we mean when there's a plastic problem, a plastic pollution we speak about. Why we use plastic? Plastic is used to ensure barrier properties of the products as in a container. Now just imagine absence of plastic in this world. What this immense big population would have done? They would have either used wood, steel, copper, or any other metal. And now compare what are the emission factors for all these materials as compared to plastics. Then you realize that plastic is not a problem. In fact, it's actually a solution to avoid many of the problems. The problem is the waste management. And if waste management is a problem, it has to be looked at, the solutions has to be looked at from that angle, that how we are able to remove the waste or reduce the waste when we are doing it, rather than jumping on plastics. Of course, there are very noteworthy examples of bioplastics are coming up, but there are definitely certain limitations to them as far as barrier properties are considered. See, I mean, if I'll just give an example of Marico. Almost you can consider 90% of our products are sensorial nature, or they are food in it. And because of that, the barrier properties in terms of oxygen and other areas, oxygen and water prevention, entry to the product becomes very important. And hence the plastic quality is very much important. We have a program called as circular economy. So the name of the program is Upcycle. And I'll just try to explain what is the program and then address the question of recycled plastic. So the program speaks about 4 legs. First leg is about what you are doing at the design. So how you are improving your design so that the plastic intensity keep on reducing every year. So last 4 years, we have in fact avoided around 400 tons of plastic only through design. And then it will go on. Probably if you look at our hair oil bottles, those would be the thinnest bottles across the industry. Second element of the program is what percentage of all the material is recyclable in nature. So as of now, 95% of Marico's material is recyclable in nature, and we have a commitment that by 2025 we would definitely go for 100% recyclable material. And not only 95% recyclable, there is a mono material. So any mono material made from a single family has very high recycling value. And that is what I think we need as a industry, we need to look at it, what can be done in this area. Third leg is of usage of the recycled plastic in our packaging material. So recently we completed 4 projects in using these things. One very interesting project we did in Kolkata, where we have collected our own bottles back and then converted into pallets, which are used for the warehousing storage. Then another project where recycled PET is used in packaging. We tied up with an agency called as Lucro and Dow for technical support, and then use the recycled material for the secondary packaging in our product. So I think industry is coming up. See, you will never find a steel or a glass laying in the waste bin, but you'll find plastic. We have to understand why this happens, because in steel and glass, the entire river supply chain, every member is getting their due share. And there is a value which is created at the end of the river supply chain. The process has started in plastic. There are a lot of people who are setting up or converting their current recycling practices into a very technically oriented or certified recycling practices, so that the big industries can come up and then rely on the quality which they are supplying to them. I feel that it's a very positive outlook, and we should look at the technical interventions in this way. And at the same time, the fourth leg is about the extended producer responsibility, in which we need to work upon improving the awareness of waste management in our society. If waste management happens, then half work is done. Because the amount of energy people are spending today, or amount of money people are spending to collect and convert into raw material again, the majority of this energy will go off if this waste management happens properly. I feel that if we work on these 4 areas, there's a very good sign, and we have taken a good actually start in this particular plastic recirculation back in the industry. So there are very good names in India also, and I strongly feel that the India's waste management has to be absorbed by the Indian companies only, rather than we import the recycled plastic from outside. Hope I could address
Absolutely, Vipin sir. Very exhaustive. I also wanted to extend the question to Jaisankar sir to understand how is Britannia approaching this issue.
See, I think Bipin very nicely he articulated it and explained the waste management, how and what need to be done in the current context, right? So I would say we are also in the same line, like how whatever Marico is doing, right? And many FMCGs are in the same stream. Again, the thing which we can say is there is one is internal to the manufacturing, that is within the factory environment. The other one is the consumer segment. When it comes to factory environment, everything is in our control, right? We always have a right categorization of waste, right? Whether it is hazardous, non-hazardous, plastic, electronic waste, everything is being compartmentalized, stored, segregated, and managed well. Right? In some cases, we kind of recycle it. See, reusing is quite difficult in a FMCG sector, at least in the biscuit industry or the bakery industry that we are in. But recycling is something which is possible, and with proper waste management, it is possible. We are into that. And in particular, in terms of the factory waste management, right? I would say that we are way ahead in terms of managing the waste, in terms of doing the right disposal, right? In terms of, getting it recycled, sending it to the correct person who does that activity, right? And in some cases, we also generate revenue out of it, wherein we send it to the cement rotary kilns, where the cement industries, they use it as a fuel in some of the laminates and other things, right? So that's how things are, and we are exploring better options. When it comes to the packaging material which reaches the consumer, that's an area where there is a lot of R&D work is happening in terms of how we can kind of can generate a reusable packaging or recyclable packaging. It's more a management side which we need to work more on. That's what we have figured out, and we also are doing few pilots as of now, right? And I think Bipin answered pretty well in terms of articulating it from the beginning. It's more about how, as an end user, we manage the waste. That is a criticality here, We have been talking about the plastic waste management handling rules for the last, I would say 6-7 years, but still we have not got into the full handle because of there are so many things. It's a complicated process, and we are getting there. But we are not moving at the pace at which the government is wanting us to happen, because it has a lot of challenges in terms of different people have different understanding. The moment somebody says plastic, it is always thought about as a something which is not going to biodegrade. It is going to be detrimental to the environment. Yes, but why do we allow it to go to the soil, right? You need to pick it and see that it is being recycled. So that's in the same direction we are also looking at, right?
Got it. Got it. And there's an interesting question from Vikas Sharma. He's asked, is the plastic waste management rules of the government of India and solid waste management rules helping the FMCG sector to achieve their ESG goals or their overall environmental goals?
See, we are taking it. See, we are taking it as a competitive advantage, right? Any waste is not a useful thing, right? It's again, we need to do the waste minimization aspect and the prevention of pollution, resource conservation. All those things happens, and we will be able to save money, right? And definitely we are going in that, because bang on, any rule which comes in, we don't have a choice, right? We have to follow that, and we have to be environmentally responsible. That stewardship aspect has already come into existence, right? The awareness has been built. We have our own self-assessment framework in place for environment as well. So yes, we have taken it, and I wouldn't say at this point of time, I cannot say the data how it is looking like, but we have a strategy in place. Maybe in a year or two, we will be able to show a downtrend, right? Because we are also growing as a company, but the specific consumption, yes, we are in a decreasing trend. That I can say.
Excellent, excellent. Bipin sir, would you agree, or is there something that you'd like to add to what Jaishankar sir just said?
Yeah. See what happens in plastic waste management when it came in 2016 first, and then the you can say enforcement started somewhere in 2018. Now, as a concept of plastic waste management, I think we all are getting matured enough to understand the importance of it. But when we wanted to enforce such kind of rules across a large country like India, where there are big organizations, there are semi-big organizations, and there are maybe you can say a 10 by 10 shop where he is doing a plastic manufacturing like polythene bags or single-use plastics. So it's a very complex topic when you consider only plastic waste management. And the plastic pollution is created by majority of the single-use plastics, which are there because there is no recycling value to those things. Now, when you talk about the big bottles, jar, cans, or paint boxes, I think there is already a reuse or a recycling value associated to it. But the majority of the focus is required on the multi-layer packaging or the flexible packaging or something like this. And I feel that it's a welcome move by government. The only problem in the plastic waste management is the framework as of now with which it is going up. So there are multiple things, iterations which are coming up, and then we are expecting the national green framework to come in, and then we will cover the majority of the issues which are to be addressed in this area. I could see 2018 versus 2021, we have done a good progress across the industries as far as plastic waste management is considered. And when I was doing in 2018 a survey for an agency to pick up for work for Marico, I could get some 3-4 names. Today we did a survey, there are more than 30 people who are there in the system who are working for the same cause, which itself tells you that there's a maturity and people are working in this area. The success will come only when we convert this as a commercial operation. Anything you are expecting people to do on their own as a CSR or as a compliance, there is a problem. Mr. Jaishankar also talked about it. It has to create an economically successful model across the industry, whether it is a producer or whether it is a recycler. When such kind of things will happen, I think we as a country will be successful in ensuring plastic waste management.
Got it. So that's quite clear on the perspective that you provided on your side as to what Britannia and Marico is doing. But as a listener, then I am left with that question as to when, because the reality of climate change, the reality of emissions is so intense and it's so conversationally strong. You pick up the papers, you read magazines, the videos, the documentaries, they're all speaking about that. And somewhere we feel that this marrying of making sure that it is economically viable, scalable, can bring together the supply chain along with the industries, is still taking time where there's a little bit of uncertainty. And that's just food for thought and a comment that I had. I have a very interesting question, actually.
Just one second. I'll just see. A lot of people actually publish different posts of a river getting polluted, and then people feel excited to speak about some incidents which has happened, and there's a lot of chit chat about it. But at the same time, huge work is happening on removing the waste. A lot of people are working in recycling, and you just look at the plastic recycling data in India over the last 5 years versus this year. There's a huge progress. I think we all need to start talking positive about the good efforts rather than, so there always be a negative element who will keep on working. But if you start talking or praising the positive word, I think more people will follow that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like Masood sir flagged, and you also picked that up, that there is so much pressure, if I can use that word, from the children, from the younger generation, from what they're being taught in school, right? And to give them that infectious positive energy that there is something that can be done. There are more people who need to dive in and get their hands dirty. And definitely, if we put all our hearts and minds together, then a solution is bound to come up. Yeah, thank you for flagging that. That's wonderful. So there are a few more questions that I wanted to take on from the chat box. Please don't mind if you see me looking down like this. I'm also looking at the WhatsApp because there are questions coming in from that side as well. So I've got a question from Ranu Pachori. What are the challenges faced in implementing efficient ESG measures in the supply chain? How do you ensure it, especially as you go down to the smaller suppliers? How do you ensure their compliance with ESG measures? Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, I picked that, right? See, when it comes to the suppliers, right, it has, in FMCG, we have to go a long way, I would say, right? At least to the extent that I'm aware of. In the automotive sector, right, it really went well, though it's not the subject of topic to be discussed here. But if you take the car manufacturer, they have reached to the extent of the tier, I would say, from customer to the tier 5, tier 6, tier 7 suppliers, right? In terms of gathering the information and what is there in it, what are the hazardous ingredients, those things have happened well there. But when it comes to the suppliers in our segment, the FMCG segment, right, we have certain awareness part and all is there. But I would say that we need to move the needle a bit more, I would say, because there are certain suppliers who are small players, some are large players. I'm not even going to the extent of the wheat supplier or the raw material suppliers in bulk, right? Because that's a big area that we are working on. We have some plans in place, but I can't disclose at this point of time. But when it comes to smaller suppliers, right, the thing is about more bringing in the awareness, right? That's an area where we are working on, right? In terms of, we have not really gone to the extent of conducting an audit and seeing that whether they are certified or all, because the kind of sector that we are in, particularly, the margin is a very thin margin business, I would say, the biscuit sector, right? Because it's very difficult to make a 10 rupee pack to even 11 rupees, which is a 10% increase. So we are operating on a very tight margin. So we have to be more, I would say, pragmatic in our approach. So the only thing is we are pushing on the awareness part, and we are insisting the suppliers to be more conscious of what they are doing. And the thing will go from us, right? As factories, what we do is something which we will be sharing as a best practices to them, right? That's what is the beginning now. I would say that we have done several things in terms of energy, waste management, water and all, but in terms of the suppliers per se, unless we do that audit and get their data, we will not be able to really know, right, to what extent they are efficient in today's situation, right? At least that's my position as of now. Maybe Bipin can add how they do it at their corporate.
Sure. Bipin sir.
See, at Marico, what we have done is that we have created a program called as Samyut. Now, Samyut is a Sanskrit word. It is Sam and Youth. Sam means all, Youth is coming together. So all coming together. So if you wanted to do something, it has to be done in a holistic way. When everybody shared a common vision, then only things can happen and progress together. And for that, as a parent company, we have to demonstrate it to them. So what we have done is that we have created a program, Samyut, which is a responsible sourcing program for Marico. It has got 3 levels. First level is definitely to educate them. Second is evaluate them, and third is to evolve. what we do is we have done in phase 1, we have done basic introductory talks to them, that we shared what is the sustainability as a topic, what is Marico's sustainability policy, what are our programs, what are our targets, what we expect to do. And once it is given and basic training is done, we have prepared a 30-question commitment checklist, which has got questions from ethical, social, and environmental area, and they are supposed to answer it. And it is very mandatory answers like yes or no. You cannot give English gap in it. It is very clearly whether you are doing it or not doing it. And then through that you get a score. If the score is above certain threshold, then we certify them as level 1. If not, then we work along with them so that they are raised to 1. So the idea here is that, as Mr. Jaishankar also talked about, the small scale industry, what happens, who are our suppliers especially, they probably are single owner or entrepreneur led teams. There could be 1 or 2 guys, and then there is a huge finance pressure on them. So if you started demanding too much at the first time, then there is a difficulty to them. So even in our program, it is not yes or no. So we do not reject anyone, because if you reject somebody, he will still be existent in the industry and will supply to somebody else, and then wrong practices will continue. The idea is that to upgrade them to a level which is acceptable to us. So we work along with these guys. So we have taken the entire supply chain people or vendors with us, raw material, packaging material, converters, logistic partners, and warehousing partners. Across these 5 areas, we have started this program, and we have achieved around 38% of our critical vendors are certified at level 1. In level 2, we are going to appoint an external agency who will have an exhaustive questionnaire to do auditing of their documents, facilities, and people. And then in level 3 is far larger objective. So there's an association of that particular vendor with Marico, and that association is creating certain scope 3 emissions for our business, jointly Marico and that 3%. So we are going to take joint programs along with them so that we are able to reduce those emissions in Marico, and probably they will also benefit by improving their environmental KPIs. So that is an evolve stage. So educate, evaluate, and evolve. These are the 3 levels which we are working upon. And by 2030, we are expecting around 100% of our vendors should get certified. And at least we should be in a position to say that whatever the product or services we are getting from our vendors are taken from a responsible sourcing mechanism or methodology, something like this. So that's what the program as of now, which is going on.
Superb, excellent. That really shows a very clear vision and commitment towards making sure that everybody in the supply chain gets included and becomes aware of the pressing urgency of what we are dealing with right now. Thank you so much for sharing that. Now, I also wanted to quickly flag a couple of issues that I think are coming out from this. Amit C has asked a question: how are the FMCG giants looking at transitional risks, that is changing consumer preferences or change in regulation or technology? What is the approach, or is that happening at all, or is that a risk at all in India as yet, as Masoodji spoke about the awareness increasing amongst the consumer?
See, I will take this. See, from the technologist front, right? Again, we were talking about the materiality index, right? In terms of, there are multiple categories, right? In terms of, if I can take energy front, right? If I take an energy front, we are moving to a clean fuel, right? Say, for example, if we are using furnace oil before, right? Or now we are moving to LPG or PNG, right? That's one way to do. And suppose we are getting power from the grid, right? And now we are moving to the green power, right? And that it's economically it is viable, plus it is also green, and we also get the benefit out of that for the ESG purpose. So wherever it is, we have the technology and even solar part, right? And certain areas it is legally mandatory. Certain things we can do by rooftop solar, right, systems, right? So those are the things which we leverage on the technology part, right? And we need to also balance the cost aspect of it, so which we are doing. But there are areas where things would take little more time, right? As rightly said, right? See, these are all the things, right? It has started, the momentum has picked, but to see something, right? If you ask me today, right, what is the data of the supplier? We are just putting a strategy for the suppliers, but we are more focusing on our own factories, right? We are having multiple operations, right? Our own manufacturing facilities, contract manufacturing facilities, warehouses. These are the areas which is within our control. So that's something which we focus on: waterfront, energy front, waste front, right? In terms of, community service, reaching out to people, right? Capability front, all these things we are looking more towards within the organization, and then reaching out to the other suppliers, large suppliers of raw materials, and direct commodities and indirect commodities. That's something which we have kept it as a phase 2 approach, right? That's how. So technology is something we are balancing out. It's a balancing act, I would say. And energy is an area where it has very clearly come out for us that is going to help us. And we need to really look at, when it comes to technology, how we can use it in the packaging space, right? That's something which there is a team out in the research and development wing which is working on it. And maybe they will come with some kind of a breakthrough innovation on that. But as of now, I don't see anything which we can say that, as a breakthrough innovation in that space, particularly on the packing material of the product packaging material.
Got it. So what I hear in the conversation from both you gentlemen is that there is a huge opportunity. We have increasing number of listeners and viewers tuning in. We are at 359 right now, and this is for everybody who's looking at this webinar. There is a huge opportunity in furthering what Jaishankar sir and Vipin sir are saying in terms of reaching out to the last mile, because the companies are doing whatever they can within their limits. And I did want to also flag this issue that you had mentioned earlier when we were doing the prep for this session, that we were looking at about 80% of the market being constituted by SMEs and MSMEs. And obviously the big companies can hire the brains, they can hire the experts, they can hire exceptional people with expertise such as yourselves to deal with this issue within the company and all the waste that's getting generated within. But what about those people, the frameworks that you are following and the frameworks that you have so innovatively created for yourself? I did have a rather selfish interest here of asking you, is it possible for you to create a slightly easier, more digestible version of the frameworks that you've created to give it to MSMEs and SMEs, as say, for example, the Britannia framework or the Marico framework of people who are, like you mentioned, single leader driven entrepreneurs or small industries that could also do that regardless of whether they were interfacing with you or not? That is, again, I'm just wishful thinking over here, but given that there's so much work that you've put in, that perhaps as a proprietary technology, but as a extended producer responsibility, it could be a very, very big initiative and could influence people at such a huge scale. And a very specific image was coming into my mind. We traveled recently, actually, during the lockdown for a project to the mountains. And we went to a small little village to have a meal with the people, the family over there, friends of ours. And while coming back, my daughter, my wife, and I were just coming up the Pagdandi. It was one of those villages that didn't have a road access. So we found one chips packet. So we said, okay, let's pick this up. Let's clean this. And then we saw a biscuit packet, and we picked that up. And then we saw a Tetra Pak, so we picked that up. And by the time we had climbed just a few hundred meters, we didn't know where to put all the packaging. So what I did realize also was that there are parts of the country where the products reach, but the awareness of the people to actually be conscious that this can't just be tossed. And can you believe it? All that material that we picked up was tossed only by the inhabitants of that village. And it was a hamlet with just about 10, 15 households, maybe a total of about 40 or 50 people in that village. But over time, that was the environmental impact. So I think, again, it's a huge opportunity for organizations, for NGOs to partner with organizations such as yourself to bring that awareness to the last mile, to make sure that it gets picked up and it just gets put into the right stream, right? Superb. There's also a couple of more questions
Gaurav,
that I wanted to take. Yes, Jaishankar sir, please.
You asked a point to make it clear. See, technically anything on the EHS front is not something confidential, right? We all learn. Even today, what we talk, it's about exchange of information. So nothing is there confidential,
Yes.
but from the certain legal standpoint, right? Because as you become a bigger brand, and when you say something, it should not be misinterpreted, misunderstood, and that should not cause a problem. From that standpoint, maybe we can provide a general framework, maybe as part of the ASSOCHAM, we can we can share those information, and we can make a template which can be given to the the other suppliers, and there is nothing wrong in it. That we should always do.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. That's sorry
I
for
think
interrupting you.
that's a great idea, Jason. No, that's a great idea. Just coming from you, that's a great idea. And I think that is again just adding to what Vipin sir said, that excitement, the enthusiasm is there, but a lot of times people are left with the question how. No problems. We are reaching out to you and letting you know that this is a framework that you could pick up if you choose. There are so many other frameworks. I know that there are some people who have asked this question. If we talk about carbon emissions or water, what are the parameters that you use? What are the frameworks that you use? I wouldn't invite you to answer those here, but I just wanted to flag that, Vignesh. All these are available on the internet. If you either look at CDP or CRISIL or SMP, there are so many protocols that you could look at, and a lot of these large companies are using them, a multitude of them, as a matter of fact, not a single one. Still looking at questions. We have Anjan Patra, who has asked, in terms of agriculture and vegetation, the northeast part of India is a very big potential area, but farmers and other stakeholders are not so much aware about the commercial output on it. But it can be a big role for FMCG sector if we can push up these northeast regions, which are very rich in vegetation. Then it can be a great economical impact for a big society. How can we inspire farmers of this region to take them in the mainstream of FMCG? Not very far from what I was also speaking about in terms of the mountain regions where the access is not that strong. What would you like to say about that?
See, I think yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Bipin sir, go ahead.
It's very difficult to comment on a northeast region because there are very specific areas in northeast, and overall population density is also very less in that region. It is also one of the important, you can say, oxygen releasing areas for India. And in fact, we need to protect the jungles. That is what normally people talk about India. So as of now, we don't have raw materials coming from that region, but we are doing an experiment in Tamil Nadu region with the coconut farmers. So I'll just briefly talk about it, and then if definitely something works out, then a similar model can be worked out in northeast region. But I think some noteworthy work is already done by the trustee, by the Tata Consumer, and we can look at that separately if someone is interested to look in that area. So what we are doing in coconut area is when we are doing a study of coconut in India as well as coconut in Southeast Asia, we observed that the yield in Southeast Asia is higher than India. And as we went ahead and tried to understand the reasons, we observed that normally coconut trees are planted on the periphery of the main farm where the other crops are taken. And the life of the trees is extremely high, around maybe 70 years or 80 years. So they are passed down by generations and not seen as a technical farming of coconut. So whatever comes in, people just try to sell it out and get more income. So what we created a program called as Kalpavriksha. Kalpavriksha, now everybody understands, it's a Sanskrit word given to the coconut tree. The idea here is that we have, in fact, onboarded technically graduate people who are having graduation in agriculture, and they are trained by some of the professors in Tamil Nadu Agricultural University. They created a program for it. And then they go farm to farm and do an assessment of farms on what is the soil management, what is water management, pesticide management, disease management, high yield variety trees, intercropping. So there are all the aspects, or how you can do harvest fast and in a safe manner. So all these kind of inputs are given to them. And then we observed in last year that there's an improvement, around 50% of improvement in the productivity of farmers who are following these practices as compared to the traditional farming. So if such kind of opportunities are possible, I think we need to look at what kind of crops are there, and then similar kind of models can be created, and those can be shared with those people. And we are extremely interested because 86% of our raw material comes from agri-produce communities. So we are highly interested that whenever there is a touch point, or at least we have a knowledge which we can share with someone, such kind of models can be definitely given, and then the farming community can definitely improve their remuneration through those things.
Yeah. So just on the same line, what in our dairy, we are also growing in the dairy segment, right? So what we have done is in the Pune region, right? We have I know the dairy, those who do the farming, right? They rear the cattle and all, right? We are giving them more inputs from the veterinarian, right? In terms of how they can get better yield, how they can be more efficient in terms of the milk production, right? And how to have the hygiene aspect so that the cows doesn't get diseased. So those are the aspects that we are also focusing in, reaching out to the different milk producers in the region, and we also have interface with the bulk milk, the chilling units and all that. So, but we are not gone big, but we have started it in the last 3 years. We have made good progress in the Pune region, because that's an area where we are focusing in terms of the dairy production and all that. So, in line, I think the organizations are pretty keen in terms of moving towards, the suppliers or so that once they develop, right, we can be more efficient. And, even in the other aspect is, right, even we also get some cost benefit, right? When their cattle doesn't fall sick and when their cost is low, then, that benefit we can also make use of it. That's also the aspect that we are looking at, right? So it's a nice effort it's a nice learning for me from the coconut aspect, which you said, the way, Mariko is doing. It's interesting. Yeah.
Wonderful. And I just want to have a very quick question, because we said we tend to do a lot of work in very diverse areas in India, and we realize that, there is this, say, for example, there is a colleague of ours who's working in Madhya Pradesh, and she's working in a tribal region, and they grow minor millets. Now, we know that millets are making a huge wave across the world. A lot of people are shifting mainstream. And I know that a lot of the bakery products are now beginning to include all that. And I think there again lies a huge opportunity to slowly shift and transition towards less chemical intensive farming, more organic kind of produce, more rain fed agriculture, and also include those into what is quickly becoming people's demand, at the same time becoming less stressful on the environment. And I wanted to acknowledge the fact that I think both your companies are doing some degree of work in that as well, to include these in your supply chain. Am I correct to say that?
Yep, that's
There
right.
is just one point I would like to add here. See, agriculture is a very sensitive sector. Now, there are so many factors which are involved when you are considering an output from a farmer. Apart from that, there are a lot of belief system which works in farming community. And if you go down the line in the rural areas, in India, also you need to understand that the overall farm availability or land availability for one person is small. You will find n number of farmers with a small land, which is unlikely as compared to the other, if you take South American countries or other European countries, where the land availability for an individual farmer is extremely high. So whatever work he wanted to do it, he can do it across the areas. In India, it is different. So you have to convince more heads if you wanted to increase the acreage.
Correct.
So in that case, it is important that we also work along with the government, because government has certain excellent schemes. I was attending one of the conferences by government where they are planning to increase their contribution on the scientific area, scientific farming, and then they welcome some of the participation from industry. I think they have very good schemes, very knowledgeable people as well as government sectors are considered. So I think if we start increasing some cooperation between two big giants, industry and government, the farmer community will start doing more scientific farming rather than a belief-based farming.
Excellent. Absolutely, Vipin sir. Absolutely. You're right. There are some excellent schemes that are coming up from the side of the government, a lot of benefit that's going out to the last mile, and it's just a matter of marrying these two. Wonderful. So there are some more questions that I feel you've already answered. I'm just flagging the issues, just voicing the opinion of the people. Do the major FMCGs companies undertake ESG audits, and if yes, then how often is it done? Jyoti, that's already been addressed very intensely in the beginning. The audits are frequent. The audits are multi-metric. They revolve around water, around waste, around greenhouse gas emissions, around climate change, around last mile social responsibility, extended producer responsibility. Yes, that's already been addressed. We always talk about green supply chain from source till product, like unorganized sector of rag pickers, where packing waste materials segregated. What's FMCG take on that? So again, that was partly addressed, that how do we raise awareness amongst those people, that how do you segregate the waste, what channel do you give it in. And although that's not something that's directly being impacted, but yes, awareness generation is happening. That's something that's already been taken care of. Carbon emissions and usage of water per kg of output, again, is something that you've mentioned in terms of Someone has asked very interestingly, of course, the water usage of even recycling plastic actually consumes more power, water, and carbon emissions as well. And when can we start looking at integrating that into the the self audits of ESG? I don't think. Would you like to address that? That's not something that's so immediate in terms of your sphere of influence, but it's an interesting question.
First of all, my hands off to the person who asked it. It's absolutely true because see, recycling of the plastic.
Vipin sir, 1 second, sorry, I did want to flag. It's Vignesh C. I wanted to just name the person who has asked this question. It's a good question. Yeah.
It's a very important element, and one should not overlook this aspect of recycling. So it is good that whenever you are doing plastic recycling, it takes a good amount of energy in it. But the intention here is twofold. When you're recycling plastic, you are avoiding the virgin plastic. Virgin plastic is made from crude material. So that aspect we have to look at it is far more important. Second aspect is that when you're recycling, that much amount of garbage from the system, you're removing and put it back in use. So you're actually cleaning the environment. So with these two aspects, we have to see, even though energy consumption is comparable as compared to things, but these are two very important aspects which one should not overlook. But I feel that such kind of I think assessment or such kind of thought process is going on. I am very happy with this question. So just
thank you, Vipin. So I quickly wanted to acknowledge that I didn't pay attention. Masood sir was raising his hand, so you had something to say, please.
No, actually, a lot of what I had to say has already been addressed. I just wanted to put a question out there, and that question was more in terms of the one issue that often doesn't get talked about: willingness to pay. We all want recycling to happen. We all want the plastic footprints to go down. We all want issues to be resolved, environmental issues to be resolved. And at the end of the day, there is a cost associated with it. Those I often get hear waste being spoken about as waste being gold and etc. The fact is, at the end of the day, there is a viability gap. In any resource recovery chain, there is a viability gap. In any recycling chain, there is a viability gap. Somebody has to pay for it. Today, the plastic waste rules, the EPR regimen, actually pushes that responsibility on the manufacturer. What does the manufacturer do? He either passes on that cost to the consumer, in which case the more environmentally responsible product you have on the shelf, the higher would be the cost. Absolutely. The more recycled packaging and better quality recycled packaging is used, higher would be the cost. We will have suboptimal compliance to these rules. So the submission that I have, I think, and this is not really a question to the panelists, it's a question to all of us, is at the end of the day, we as the beneficiary of each of these FMCG products, we as the consumers need to have an incremental willingness to pay. So the next time we are out there in the aisles looking at products and comparing which one, in addition to price, quality, etc., there has to be a third consideration coming in. We have seen that in many parts of the world, when a country like India even provides one minor incremental value associated with eco-friendly products or recycled products. I think you'll see a revolution in this space, especially in the FMCG space.
That is absolutely phenomenal, and I think that's a very, very good note to try and bring this session to a conclusion. I did want to open this up to every one of the 355 participants who's with us to spread this message. Are you taking that on? Is the real question that we would like to leave as ASSOCHAM and as this team today, leave you with. Are you taking that on? I want to commit as a professional, as a citizen, as a consumer of FMCG products, that I promise that from now on, I will look at paying that extra rupee to make sure that I go for that, that product. It may not be an extra rupee, maybe extra 2-3 rupees, but to actually acknowledge the fact that I am going for a product that's more eco-friendly. And our invitation would be to all the listeners listening in and viewing this, that you too join hands in making that promise and making sure that not only you, but the people who are around you also are cognizant of this fact, acknowledge this and take it on in their lives. And that's how the message is going to spread. Super. So there's a lot of acknowledgements coming in. There's a lot of thanks coming in from people. There's an interesting question that Neeru has asked. In case willingness to pay is not there, can it be enforced through regulation on the producer as well as the consumer? So we will be back with an ESG session that would target the government and policymakers hopefully soon. And then we can put them in the spotlight and ask them this question, because I do understand a lot of you have a lot of questions to ask, and a lot of these questions are very pertinent to actually discuss with policymakers or people who are influencing policy as well. Anything else from the other people before we conclude? Rupali, thank you for your comments. Bill Gates called out the same point and called it green premium, Shruti Ganguly has said. Absolutely, very true. So with those excellent remarks, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Bipin sir, Jaisankar sir, and the entire team that's present here. Kushagra, Neeraj, of course, it can't be without your brainchild that this has gone forward. Masood sir for flagging it and just bringing it off to a tremendous kickstart, and the entire ASSOCHAM team, Deepak, Amit, all of your efforts. And of course, we couldn't have done this without all the people who logged in. So let's try our level best. The next time we have 650 people who registered, 650 people listening, because this is about them. This is not about us. This is really about all of our futures. So I'd like to now hand over to Neeraj sir for the concluding remarks.
Thank you so much, Gaurav. So it was really, I mean, what should I say? Really wonderful, session. So and I would like to compliment that we are also improving, webinar to webinar. So the attendance this time and the interaction with the delegates, I think it is really wonderful. So thank you so much, Gaurav, for the very interactive moderation, and thank you, eminent speakers, for the excellent information you have shared with us. So thank you. Now I would request Kushagra Juneja. Kushagra is member, in fact, active member of ASSOCHAM Council on Environment and Climate Change, and is the managing partner Design to Occupancy Services LLP. So Kushagra, I would like to invite you to extend the vote of thanks, and not vote of thanks, but the way forward. Over to you, Kushagra.
Thank you, Neeraj sir. Again, a privilege to be among all of you, and thank you, Masood sir. You set the stage perfectly, and I am always truly amazed by the research you come with every time there's something new. We covered a lot of lengths and breadths of ESG, starting from cities expanding their horizons, becoming more concrete, to plastics, to problems in the east and northeast, and plethora of other issues as well. So I think it is amazing breadth that we cover. I've already had a great chance to interact with Bipin sir on several occasions, and it is always truly amazing to understand from him that what his thoughts are. Britannia has been doing some great work, and it was truly a privilege to know about Jaisankar sir's initiatives in the ESG sector. So thank you, all of you. And this was one of the webinars where we saw as the session progress, the attendance kept going up. And it is truly motivating for all of us at ASSOCHAM and at the Environment Council of ASSOCHAM to keep organizing such events every month. So this is an ongoing series on ESG in different sectors. I am taking this privilege to announce that the next webinar would be ESG in pharma sector. We'll come up with the date soon. And like at the end of last webinar, Gaurav rightly said, it's not a webinar per se, it's a jugalbandi. So it's an interaction, it's a forum to talk to all of you. It is a forum to understand perspective and to take that chance to spend that couple of extra rupees, 3 rupees extra, 4 rupees extra, whatever Gaurav has said, and make a positive stride in the environmental direction. Thank you once again, all of you, and have a good day, Britannia, good day. Thank you so much.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Mari, if you prefer it.